Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Jerm here. Today, as you guys can see up on the screen, I wanted to talk a little bit about SOFI Technologies Incorporated. This is ticker symbol SOFI, for those of you who are maybe not familiar with this stock or with this company. And today was a weird day for SOFI because usually when we pull up these things on Google, it's green, it's red, there's a big up day, a big down day, there's something for us to talk about. We don't get to see this gray very often, but this is obviously because SOFI was exactly flat today. We closed at 686 yesterday, and today once again we are closing at 686. Now obviously it was a wild ride getting to this point. SOFI opened today very in the red at 675. They actually got into the green for a little while and then went right back down to the red, even lower than before ultimately climbing back. So today was just an absolute roller coaster. Really weird day, really strange day when we look at the rest of the broader market. Honestly, an underperformance by SOFI today when you have the Dow Jones up 0.8%, S&P almost up a full percent, NASDAQ almost up a full percent, and the Russell being up 1.57%. Hey, obviously it's good. SOFI wasn't red. They didn't go down, but also if you're underperforming the market, then, you know, the opportunity cost of holding on to SOFI when you could just be in like the S&P or something like that is not really that great. But in this video today, we'll be going over all the latest for SOFI, and we do have a lot to talk about, so let's just get right into it. The first is this from investorplace.com, and they are saying, at least with this article, Chris Tyler, a contributor for the website, is saying don't follow the insider buying into SOFI stock yet. So he's not saying he's not saying that SOFI sucks or it's a horrible investment or anything like that. He's just saying, to be a little patient, to wait on this, maybe to let the story play out a little bit further. So this article does talk about how insider buying by SOFI CEO following earnings appears promising. SOFI stock's bears remain a strong presence, and shares could see a return move towards $5. And longer-term investors should monitor SOFI shares for more signs of bullishness before buying. So just kind of some interesting stuff to keep in mind there. Obviously, SOFI over the past month has been up almost 15%, so it does seem like momentum is starting to pick up a little bit. Seems like the market as a whole really hasn't been tanking as hard as it was a couple of weeks ago. So people are starting to feel a little bit better. People are starting to get a little bit more excited about the near term and longer term future and starting to buy in a little bit more, maybe seeing if they should load up on positions more and stuff like that. I think it's interesting, for somebody to come out and say, hey, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's wait. Let's see how this goes. Because, again, this is not even a month ago. SOFI was 525. Yes, we're up to 686 there, but doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. Again, year to date, we're still down 56.25%. This is still, on a downward trajectory right now, and nothing ever goes straight down. Just because, we've had a good month or we've had a good couple of weeks, again, doesn't mean that we can't go further down. Doesn't mean it's time to load the boat just yet. But this is just one person's opinion. I just kind of want to present both sides of everything and talk about some of the articles that are out there right now. We also had this post from the SOFI stock subreddit. Anyone else noticing changes? This person says that they see the dark mode sticks and they bought some SOFI on limit trading and it was completely different. It even included a slide bar to complete their order. And then they said it looks cleaner. And I think this is really cool because we have heard a lot of complaints from people about like the UI and the overall just experience of the app being like, hey, this kind of sucks. It doesn't look that futuristic. It doesn't even look that modern. It's not that functional. People had all these different kinds of complaints. And if SOFI, wants to be the financial institution of the future and like the best of everything and the one-stop shop for everything, and institutional banks are boring. They're stuck in their old ways, and we're this cool new, really user-friendly, like better alternative to a lot of these other financial services. Not only do they need to offer the entire suite of services, which they don't quite yet, but they also need to offer it in a better way, a cleaner way, a sleeker way, an easier to use, higher functionality way. And I think a lot of people would argue still up to this point, SOFI is not doing that either. So this is cool to hear that they're making some changes, and it's always cool to hear user feedback and stuff and see that some people are noticing some positive changes and they're enjoying it. So I think that's cool. This I thought was an interesting post as well. Just a reminder for the cute ones here, I don't know what that means. Even with 20% short interest, SOFI is still moving with the rest of fintech. So, a lot of people say, hey, SOFI is kind of being artificially held down by, shorts, or it's getting pushed down or whatever. But when you look at SOFI compared to a lot of these other companies like LC, SQ, Open, ARC F, ARC K, PayPal, Upstart, Affirm. These graphs do look very, very similar. And I think this is a good and a bad thing. Like, one, it shows that, SoFi hasn't really made themselves different in a meaningful way at this point. It's not like, oh, fintech sucks right now, but SoFi is taking off towards the moon. But it's also a good sign. It'd be different if SoFi, if fintech as an industry or as a sector was going crazy and SoFi was down like 60% on the year or whatever. But it does make this 56% down year to date a little easier to digest when you know that, hey, this isn't necessarily anything SoFi did wrong. It's not anything necessarily SoFi specific. It's just the fact that, yes, the fintech sector in general is out of favor with investors. It's out of favor with the stock market. Now, maybe as a sector as a whole, they were overvalued and they were overhyped and it was running a little bit too hot and it needed to come back down to normal. Or maybe, this is just kind of natural rotations and maybe there's a lot of fintech companies that are a little bit undervalued right now. I think that's very, very possible. But it also shows that, like I said, it's not necessarily SoFi's fault. The whole sector of really the whole market, but a lot of the companies similar to SoFi have been going down and down and down. And I think that's something that people don't talk about enough. The fact that, yes, maybe there's some things SoFi could do better or could do worse or whatever, but the stock market and companies and sectors for the most part move together unless you have something really big and really crazy that's making you stand out in some meaningful way. Not that SoFi doesn't have that, but at least in the 6 months of 2022, there's no reason that they are like way outperforming to the point where they're green when everything else is way down. This post I thought was interesting too. Bank license, a big deal. They said that there's 4,983 banks in the United States. And hey, is SoFi getting a bank license really that big of a deal? Which I think is kind of a unique and interesting take that we haven't heard of very much. And the top comment here I think explains it really, really well. They said, hey, the bank charter has nothing to do with other banks or, being one of the very few banks or relative to the overall number of banks in the United States. It's about SoFi as a company that's not a bank. And as a bank, the just amount of options it opens the door for you to, and the amount of savings that it allows you to have as well. So again, it doesn't really matter if their competition is also banks or how many banks there are. This matters that you were investing in SoFi previously when it wasn't a bank, and now it is a bank, and that's always going to be a positive thing. So I get what they're saying, and I think it's kind of an interesting point. But yes, I don't really think it's that big of a deal how many other banks there are. This news was from yesterday as well. SoFi is going to be added to the Russell 3000, which I think is really, really cool. Obviously, this is a good thing. It's going to open SoFi up to more kind of institutional investors or whatever. It's going to open them up to more money that's going into these index funds. And now, obviously, SoFi is going to be a chunk of that. It's also going to have some shares being bought up and held for the longer term. So, usually overall being added to index funds adds legitimacy, it adds stability, and it usually comes with some price increases in the long run as well. Again, if the whole market's going down, it's not going to stop that. It's not going to reverse that or anything like that. But I think overall getting added to an index, especially an index as big as the Russell 3000, is pretty much always a net positive. I can't really think of any ways that it would be a bad thing. Also, this question, is SoFi going to reach $10 by the end of the year? Again, SoFi is now at $6.86. We have right around half the year left to go. We have right around 6 months, maybe a little bit more than 6 months at this point. Closer to 7 months, I guess. June just started. And it's just kind of interesting because, again, if you look where SoFi started the year, it was at $15.68. And if you would have told people at that time that, in June, we'd be at $6.86, we'd have 52-week lows of $4.82, and we'd be talking about whether or not SoFi was even going to get to $10, it's really crazy, but it also shows you how fast the market can move. In 6 months from now, SoFi could very easily be $4. It could very easily be $10. It could very easily be $15, $20, $25. And then we look back like, hey, remember when this thing was $6.86 6 months ago? Which is why I think it's really crazy and interesting and why it makes it so difficult to try and time the market and how, yes, holding on, you get swallowed into these huge downward swings and these huge downward times, but you see how fast things can turn down. That's how fast things can turn up as well. And if you're not, consistently in the market, you could easily miss some of those huge upswings and stuff like that. And then I think the last thing we have to talk about here today, I just about had a heart attack. Amazon, surely with all that tech SoFi has, we can fix stock split notifications and charts. And this person, they posted from SoFi Invest. They got a notification that said Amazon was down 94.86% to $125.71. So obviously, if you wake up and you see Amazon's down 95%, something's going on there. It's not just down 95%, but yes, SoFi should not be giving out notifications that says, hey, Amazon's down 95% when they just did a stock split. We are way past that point. We've had a lot of big stock splits over the past couple of years. If you are an industry leader, if you want to be the very best, if you want to say that you are better than these big financial institutions, stuff like that, little things like this, little quality of life measures, they shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be falling through the cracks. So hopefully SoFi can learn from this and not have this one happen again, because we have another big stock split coming up in Google. I think it's in like July or something like that. And you don't want to be looking silly in front of everybody that has your app. But that's pretty much everybody's video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you guys think about SOFI. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content. Hope to catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.